Well, hello, friends. And I'll just start by saying Merry Christmas. Okay, so it's not quite Christmas yet, but we're going to be talking about Christmas today. And I have my friend Roseanna White, and we're talking about her new book, Christmas at Sugar Plum Manor. That's a mouthful, and it sounds like a yummy mouthful, actually. But welcome, Roseanna. And why don't we just start by you introducing yourself?
All right. Well, first, thanks so much for having me. It's always great to talk to Trisha and the Avid Readers Group. Love it. Anyway, so I'm Rosanna. I live in West Virginia with my husband and two kids, one of whom is off at college. So she sort of lives here. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I've homeschooled all the way through before I launched the first one off to college. I'm still homeschooling the second and write a lot of books and design a lot of book covers and help my husband run the White Fire Publishing Group where we got to work with awesome Trisha. so
That was so fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I am all things book. The book world is my entire world. So all things
You've
bookish over
lately
here.
been, like, painting. Talk about the painting. Oh, can you hear me?
Oh, the painting of the book edges. Okay, yeah. So
Yes.
I was seeing all those beautiful special edition book edges. I've been reading more fantasy, and that's huge in the fantasy side of the world. And I just fell in love with them, but I never want to like pay the money for a
You're right.
special edition. So I'm like, I can totally just paint my own book edges. So I got some clamps and some spray paint and started spraying my own edges. So they're all,
It
one of
is
a
so
kind.
cool.
It's very fun.
I It's like, I didn't even know that was a thing until I saw you doing it. Then I'm like, "Oh, wait, this is a thing." It's beautiful, and it's
Yep.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's really
so
not that hard. You just, cover the book and put it in a clamp and spray, and there you go.
there we go. Well, you need to go over to her Instagram and see the finished books because it's amazing. All right, so we're talking about Christmas at Sugar Plum Manor, which is such a fun book. It's like a well, there's 2 guys vying for one person's attention, and you are right from the beginning rooting for one of them, and the other one, you're like, "No, don't go down that path." But there is you did such a great job. Okay, first of all, I'm gonna have you explain it in a second, but I wanna say you did such a good job of there's multiple layers of conflict. There's multiple layers of people who have very specific opinions on each other. There is like it's not one I mean, sometimes you pick up a book, especially a holiday book, it just seems like it's kind of like a Hallmark movie where it's gonna be very predictable, very you know exactly what's gonna happen, and this one, I don't know what's gonna happen exactly. I have hopes of what I hope is going to happen, but everyone has their input, and then you're like, "Oh, why? I can see why mom would think this way," or, "Oh, I can see why her stepdad would think this way." And I'm not making any sense unless because 'cause I'm rambling. So why don't we start with you? Why don't you explain what the book is about?
Okay, so first of all, it's inspired by the Nutcracker. My daughter danced in our local production of the Nutcracker from age 5 on up until actually our studio closed, which was very sad. But so
Oh.
that was such a part of our holiday season every year because the studio we worked with, they owned all the costumes and they would just rotate the girls as they grew in and out of them
Ah,
into the different dances. So it's like, oh, what party gown are we going to have this year? And
yeah.
the Nutcracker soundtrack is just, runs through our head constantly in the holiday season. And it's just part of Christmas to us. So when my editor said, hey, how about a, Edwardian Christmas novella? I'm like, Nutcracker! So I thought that would be so much
Yes.
fun. So rather than base it on the ballet, I based it on the original story by E.T.A. Hoffman, which was Nutcracker and Mouse King. And that gives you more of the background and more of why these strange mice are coming in and stealing their Christmas and what's going on between them and the Nutcracker. So we actually have more of a story of, a true antagonist and a kind of myth that underlies it all. And the actual story ends when um, Marie is the original character's name is grown up. So it was
Mm.
so much fun. So I decided that in my imagination, um, it would be a kind of combination of the original story was something they created as children, and then they are living out the when he returns portion of the story, which E.T.A. Hoffman does not really get into. That's just their happily ever after. So we have our lovely wonderful little girl, Mariah, only she's all grown up now, but she still has that whimsical, very
Mhm.
imaginative point of view. And she loves Christmas and embodies what we think of as the Christmas spirit. But the rest of her family does not. And
Right.
they're very much caught up in the reality of the world. And, her sister has been widowed and she's very depressed, as we would call it today. And her stepfather has no heir, so he's very angsty about that. Well, he has a very,
Very distant.
very distant heir. And so, her mother just wants her daughters to be happy and, make good matches because this is, of course, Edwardian society. Her brother's a big old stick in the mud because he has
He is.
the
He's
weight of
kinda
an earldom.
grumpy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's very grumpy. And so we have, this very kind of realistic family setup. And then we have our two gentlemen who are coming this Christmas. So the first is my Nutcracker character, Cyril. And uh, he wants to be a hero. He wants to be heroic. And he, studied literature at whatever college I sent him to. I don't remember now, Oxford, Cambridge, one of those.
I think it was Oxford. I think it
Thank you.
was. Yeah.
It's been too long. It's actually been like 2 weeks since I reread it, but
Oh, yeah.
details. But
Yeah.
anyway, so he wants to have a story worth telling, and he thought that that would happen to him when he happened to rescue this beautiful young woman in London. Turns out this beautiful young woman is a piece of work, and she just
Mhm.
rakes him over the coals, which is again part of the original Nutcracker story. And another of her suitors was a Danish lord who came to England specifically to find an English bride for political reasons to solidify relations between Denmark and England, which were very iffy at this point in history because Denmark and Germany were very well tied, and Germany and England were not
Mhm.
on good terms. So he wanted to find a very well connected English bride whose family is close to the king. So once he decides that this other girl, Lady Pearl, is a piece of work, he sees right through her eventually. He decides, okay, number two on my list is Lady Mariah. So here he comes, very, logical. Let's get this taken care of. And that's the
Very
scene.
logical and not romantic at all.
Romantic at all. So that is the setup we have with Mariah determined to bring Christmas to everybody and everyone else being very much bah humbug about it all.
I love okay, so I have never, like, read the Nutcracker, book. I've watched the ballet, but it's like, to me, I don't know the story, so it's just like dancing and I don't know, it's, like, beautiful, but so, I had no idea it's about the Nutcracker. Now, I'm like, "Okay, this is so cool." I love anytime you have there's a touch on something like the Nutcracker or something like the Christmas Story, or I mean something, that people know, but then you see these elements just like make even more sense, which why they have the little nutcrackers now that they're making. This is all making so much more sense to me now. But I will say I followed the story completely and enjoyed it completely without even knowing that fact. So that's
Yeah,
cool too.
yeah. If you are a Nutcracker fanatic, you will get it all. And if you are not, it will be a fun Christmas story.
Yeah, except that Lord guy. I don't know. He's like,
Soren
I'm
Gildenkron.
like, I'm like, "Go away." Yeah, even his last name, I'm like, "It's too fancy. I don't know. You need to get your little fancy booties out of here." 'Cause but you could also see that there was a lot of political stuff happening in that
Mhm.
time in history. There were the you needed to do the matches so that nations could be at peace with each other, which I'm so glad we don't have that today. And she's even I remember there's a conversation with her mother about love or something. And it's like now it's so we just assume that that's what marriage is about. We just fall in love when we get married. But back then there was a lot of different considerations. And I love learning about history and learning about that time in history. Also what people valued. They did not value her stories or her whimsy. Quite disappointed she did not know how to knit for the children in the village. I mean, just stuff like that. I'm like, oh yeah, there is different things that women in society did. They served the poor in certain ways. And I just love, first of all, I love Christmas stories. It's so fun. Second of all, the characters, you're definitely, you can see I'm emotionally involved with these characters. Like, I care about what's happening to them, so that's awesome. But then when you're learning history on top of it, it's just like bonus. This is why I mean, and your books, you do such a good job about that. I know I'm always going to learn, but I'm also going to care about the characters. And what I like about your books is your characters are very unique. You know how
Mhm.
some authors kind of just their characters are very similar. They just build a different time in history or a world around them.
Mhm.
But I think your character, like this whimsical Mariah, is very unique and very different. Like I think the last one I read of yours, she was that World War II decoder girl. I mean, talk
Margot.
about yeah, opposite personalities.
Oh.
Completely opposite.
Putting these 2 in a room together would be very interesting.
Yeah, they would not fit, but that's what I love
No,
because some
yeah.
again, and I love some you just enjoy you enjoy authors and they just you know what you're gonna get, and I do know I'm gonna get a good story, but I love that you do make it very different and
Yep,
very creative with your characters. All
yep.
right. So tell us a little bit about okay, you mentioned your daughter,
Mhm.
and that's like the inspiration. So what was it like when you actually sat down and like entered into that world? Going from seeing this production year after year to now it's playing out in your mind that you're getting on paper.
Yeah, it was really fun. Of course, I was writing it in June because
Yeah.
when do you write a Christmas book? In June, of course.
Yeah.
And so I turned on the Nutcracker music, which everyone found hilarious because it's June, and
Yeah.
just kind of got into the zone. And I've never written a strictly Christmas book before. I've written books that have
Oh.
Christmas in them, and I actually wrote one that was a story about the original Saint Nicholas, but that was ancient world, so it was very different from what we think of as Christmas today. So this
Right,
was the
right.
first one with like Christmas decorations and Christmas trees and Christmas cookies and sweets and the whole thing that we associate with Christmas celebrations today. And it was just so much fun. Like just to dive in and I just took a week and wrote the book in a week. And it was
Wow.
it was a lot of fun to just be in the spirit that holy and just keep my mind in there and I had a blast. It was just delight on every page. I was just putting it all in there, all the fun, all the Christmas fun.
I l I love it, but also there is, like, some angst with, Mariah lost her dad,
Mhm,
and then you have Cyril who has a lot of child wounds, I guess you
mhm,
say, from his past, and so there's the lightness, but the characters also you see why they're making some of the decisions that they're making because of the pain of the past. So I love that it's like you don't just have them going through the motions. You see, like, okay, I could see why he would feel this way, think this way, why he hasn't come back to
right.
the manor for many, many years. So, talk a little bit about that because I think um, when we write, I mean, at least for me, we kind of dig into our own pain, other people's pain, and that's I think really fiction is a way to like process emotions, process things, but we do it through the characters as we're talking about sugar plums and as we're talking about plays
Right.
and all the things. Like it's just amazing that we can do that. We can enjoy it, but also like, oh, I know someone like that, or maybe I am like that, or I've struggled with that. So let's talk about those elements too.
Yeah. So I always think even a short because this is a pretty short story or short novel, but short doesn't need to mean oversimplistic. It can still have complex characters with lots of layers. So as I'm trying to figure out what would make Cyril have not come back to the manor for 12 years, I think it is. And thinking, well, he was injured, like emotionally injured. He overheard her stepfather saying something about how he doesn't want a stranger to inherit it, and he takes that to mean me. He doesn't want me to inherit this stuff, and that
Mhm.
hurts him. He's a kid to hear that. So he's carrying that baggage along with the fact that his father was abusive. So his father is dead long before the story begins.
You
Um,
killed him off a long time ago.
way, way, way long ago. Like that's just backstory. But that's what undergirds his desire to be a heroic character. Like he wants a story worth telling because he doesn't think he has one. He doesn't know if he deserves one. And he is convinced at this point in time that he just imagined all the good memories from that first trip. That was just
Mhm.
his childhood memory being childish, and that's not the reality. So that's the kind of complexity that Cyril arrives with. And of course, Mariah has we see this a lot in some historical things, but she's a beloved stepdaughter, but that
Mhm.
means she has no claim on this place she calls home. Um,
Mhm.
she can't stay there. I mean, she could stay and be unmarried, but then it's gonna be Cyril's someday, so if they're not friends, what's she gonna do, right? She can't stay there. The best she
Yeah.
could do is go live with her brother, but that's not home. She's never lived there since she was 3, and she doesn't remember that.
Mhm.
So, that kind of idea of, the place you call home, but you have no claim to, like, what would that
Right.
do, right? Like, what mindset would you come at the world with? And so, and then there's just the idea of Christmas itself. And so Christmas is something we have talked about a lot in our family because we love the celebration, but we don't want to get so wrapped up in gifts that we
Mhm.
forget it's about Christ. It's not about us. It's not about what present you give me and what present I give you. It's not about the shopping. It's not about the decorating. It's about this miracle of God putting on human flesh. And so we have gone back and forth a lot in our immediate family with how to keep it sacred while still enjoying a very
Mhm.
festive season. And so, all those debates are of course spinning through my head as I'm writing this. And Mariah is basically told over and over again, "You're being childish. You are so set on this
Mhm.
whimsical stuff that your head's up in the clouds. You need to get your feet on the ground." But she also says, "You know what? There is something important about believing in miracles, believing in the impossible, and when better to acknowledge that than at Christmas?" So she's, basically trying to win the world over to realize that you can be joyful. You can believe in all these things that shouldn't happen, and you can do silly things now and then because laughter and smiling is important. It's important to be
Mhm.
joyful even when circumstances aren't what we want them to be.
Yeah, and I love that that's what she's known for, like, even around the people of the town, like, she's known as that giving, caring person, which just makes us care for her even more right from the beginning of the book. She's just such a likable character. Okay, so you mentioned writing it in a week. I'm like, "Girl." Right? Like, that's amazing. And I know you write a lot. I'm like everyone's like, "Trisha, you write so many books." I'm like, "But Roseanna." But Roseanna, I think she beats me out. So when, you talked about writing this in June and there's multiple deadlines, how do you handle, because I know readers think about this too. How do you handle when you have multiple deadlines and you know, okay, I have a Christmas book, I have this book, I have that other book. How do you balance all of those things as a writer?
Yeah, I have a pocket calendar and I have all my due dates on there. So the year I wrote this was 2023. I had 6 books due. So they all had their calendar, and whatever was next was what I worked on. And I've
Hmm.
gotten to the point where because I'm juggling so many deadlines, that I write in big chunks of time. So rather than writing, I used to be, 2,000 words every day. Well, that wasn't cutting it at this point.
Yeah.
So instead, I take a whole week where I don't do anything else. So I don't do the design work, I don't do the publishing work. Kids are on their own, meals are pre planned, and I just write. And when I do that, I can write at least 10,000 words a day. So this was a 55,000 word novel, so I just wrote it in a
Hmm.
week. My longer novels, I'll take a week and then I'll take like a week or two off and then I'll do it again and I can get a whole novel in 2 weeks. So that's what
Yeah.
I've been doing. That's what I did last year. And that's how I got 6 books done. And yeah,
Wow.
so when edits come in, those just get plugged in and like, okay, well, are edits due first or is the draft due first? We're just going to juggle like that. And
Hmm.
sometimes when your deadlines are 6 months apart, that means edits are due on the same day as a book. And it's like,
I know.
thanks, team. That's great. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you just, whichever one's first, you just plug it in and switch gears and get very good at juggling.
Yeah, and really it's like that's in the back of your mind, but it's like I don't have to think about you yet. Like I have a book, we won't even tell you that I haven't started it yet, but I haven't started it yet. That's due June 15th. It's coming. I'm gonna get started on that next week. But it's like I have to finish this first and then we'll do the next thing.
Yep.
And I think you do get used to it. And I think the one thing about creative people, unless you're a writer that writes a lot, you probably don't understand this. It's like the more you write, the more ideas come.
Hmm.
So I think some people think you work really hard, you use up your ideas, and then you're empty. But I
Yeah.
find the more I write, the more they just come. And at
Yep.
nearly at the end of every book, I have ideas for 3 more books. And
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
my agent always knows when deadline time is. All of a sudden, she'll get all these emails about this and that, or I'll have a proposal. All of a sudden,
Focus,
I'll
Trisha. Focus on the
whip
one do
out
now.
exactly, whip out a proposal really quick, and she's like, "Where did this come from?" I'm like, "Well, this book is due in
Yeah.
3 days, so I just thought I'd write a book proposal for you and get it to you."
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so too. Creativity breeds creativity, yeah, the more you
And
do,
I think
the more you get
yeah,
used
we
to
get
doing.
used to yeah, and we get used to the we know what it needs to be with the plot and the
Right.
characters
Yeah.
and
You
the
get to know your own
in
rhythm even and, like, how long your chapters
Mhm.
usually are, so you can pace things accordingly, yeah.
I love it. Okay, so you talked about 6 books.
Mhm.
Just generally tell us like what kind of books because now we can there's lots of things for us to look forward to. Basically, for those people that read a book every couple months, Rosanna has you taken care of. You won't even need another author. She's got you. And then if you talk about her backlist, yeah, you could just fill that up for a while.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what did you do when you with those 6 books that were due?
Well, I was doing the Imposter series for Bethany House, so, books 2 and 3 I wrote this year, or that year, 2023, and the Christmas one, and then I had 3 books for guideposts as well, so there were some biblical fiction for guideposts, as well as some contemporary for their mystery line that have a little historical thread through them as well.
Yeah, those are really fun.
They are. They're
They're
also quick to
shorter.
write. Yeah.
Yeah, they're quick to write, although at first, when I first started writing, I'm like, "I will write historical, I will not write biblical fiction because it seems so like, this is
Intimidating at
the
first.
Bible." Yes,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
intimidating, but then once I got into it, I'm like, "Oh my goodness," then I feel like I know so much. I wrote about Hannah and Miriam and, Esther are the ones that I did.
Awesome.
So it's
Yeah.
like, let's get in a conversation about those ladies. So who did you
Yeah.
work on for the biblical ones?
Let's see. I've done Naaman's handmaiden, who is
Okay.
unnamed in the Bible, but her and Mary Magdalene, and the 5 daughters of Zelophehad.
Oh, okay. They're the ones that asked for the land, right?
Yep, yep. The
Okay.
only female inheritors among the
That
original.
were
Yeah.
I love that. I love that when they were allotting out the land. Very cool. Okay, so fun. All right. So, what are you working on now? Are you going to be doing any more Christmas books or what can we be looking forward to?
I will have a Christmas novella coming out from Tyndale not soon. I haven't written it yet.
Okay.
So I have next after the Imposter series wraps up, I am doing a World War II. So I've done a World War II, World War One time slip before, but this will be my
Mhm.
first just World War II. And it is set in Paris at the Library of Burned Books, which is full of all the books that Germany banned and outlawed and burned.
Mhm.
When the Nazi power or Nazi regime came into power. So it is about a German officer who gets sent to Paris to run the libraries and take care of this library. But he's not the Nazi everyone thinks he is. He has some secrets that he is has under his cap. And Corinne is the heroine. She is a professor and lives next to the library of burned books and has used the books in the library for some intrigue and intelligence work and is a little disturbed when the Nazis come and sees the library next door. So that one was super fun. That's in the editorial stage right now. After that will be a Christmas novella that will also be World War II. It'll be set in Iceland and about the origins of
Mm.
Jarlabokaflod, the Christmas book flood that we hear about on social media. So that'll be really fun. Iceland is a very small country of big readers. So
That is so
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
I know. Yeah. Don't is Iceland the one that they have reading like get-togethers where people just get together and read books? I
sounds
think it's
right.
Iceland. Yeah. And
Yeah,
like I want to go there. I want
I
to
know,
do
right?
that. Yeah.
So
Okay,
cool.
so the Imposter series. You
Yeah,
mentioned that a couple times. I have not read those. How did
they're
I
they're
yeah, tell
super
me. Tell
fun.
me.
So those
Tell me.
are Edwardian aristocratic brother and sister who are their estates on the brink of bankruptcy. So they become private investigators and are basically spying on the elite of society, and no one knows that it's them. who are the imposters because that's the name of their agency. And they, so their father wasted all their money on entertainments, which were circus performers and theater troupes
Entertainments.
and, all of these things that made for a very delightful childhood, but spent all their money. So, but they have been trained by these circus people in theater groups. So they have acting skills and they have technology that, they just use for theater that we don't, didn't think to use for spying on people yet. And they're acrobats, so they can, climb walls and tight
Oh
ropes
my
and
word. I
trapezes.
need to
And
go
so,
find these
so
books.
much fun. So much fun. So, yeah.
Okay, what are the titles? Because I'm like literally got to go buy some of these right now.
Book one is A Beautiful Disguise. It came out last August. Book
Okay.
two is A Noble Scheme, and it just came out January. January? No, March. Sorry,
Okay.
I used to be on a January schedule, and it's now March. March of 2024, and book three will come out in November of 2024.
Oh, that sounds so fun. Okay, talk about the Edwardian period. How did you get into that? Because I have not written books in this period, but I love reading about it. So tell us,
Yes.
like, for those maybe who have never read from the Edwardian period, tell us a little bit about what to expect.
Okay, well, it's the whole Downton Abbey craze was what got me started because my agent said, "Hey, everyone's looking for Downton Abbey style books. Do you have anything?" And I was like, "No, but give me a week." So
Yeah,
I binge
exactly.
watched season one of Downton and was like, "Okay, okay. So, all right, we've got the advent of modern technology like electricity and automobiles. We've got a holdover of the Victorian ways. So,
Hmm.
that is still like, it feels like history, beautiful dresses. We've got the upper
Right.
class society, but then we've got the lower classes and how those interact. And yeah, so I was like, all right, I've got this idea that I was actually, I took my very first book that I wrote when I was 13. It had originally been Victorian, and I rewrote it to be Edwardian, which is set in
Wait. When you
1910.
were 13, you still
Yeah,
had a book from when you were 13?
yeah, yeah.
No
I had
way.
rewritten it
Okay.
about 8,000 times. So, it was actually a rewrite of it that I took to my very first writers conference, where I took a class by Trisha Goyer, by the way. It was
You
fantastic.
did?
I did. Yeah,
Oh,
it was great.
wow.
And so I pitched it there and it never went anywhere, but the Bethany House, editor really liked me. We kind of clicked and she took it to committee. And then 7 years later was when we resubmitted it as an Edwardian, and that editor, Karen, reached out to me and she was like, "I remember this. I'm so excited." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you remember that from
No
7 years ago?"
way.
So it finally, yeah, landed with Bethany House as an Edwardian. And there we go. So that's what they wanted me to keep writing. So I have then written so many, so many books in from like the 1900 to the end of World War One was what I was doing for them. Yep.
That is so cool. So, though I wrote one of that time period, and it was a Titanic one. Um, but yeah, but the Titanic happens. I mean, that's how Downton Abbey. That's how
Yeah,
it
it
starts with the
starts. Yeah.
Titanic. Yeah. So that's the only one I've written in that era. Hmm. I'm just fascinated by it. But and I love it. I love reading your books there. Okay. Where well, before we go to the where can we find you, we need to know what you like to read. So, what is a novel that you've enjoyed reading that you really love lately or in the past that you can recommend to the avid readers?
Well, I read very widely, so I've been reading lots of fun things. I've been reading a lot in the fantasy genre. I can't wait to get the one you have written with your son. That's so cool sounding.
Breath of Bones.
I
I'm so
know, I can't wait,
excited.
I can't wait. But I think one of the ones I finished most recently was Darkness Calls the Tiger by Jan Tom.
Oh,
Oh my gosh, like, unlike anything I've ever read.
I
So I've
cannot
read a lot
wait
of
for
World War
that.
II, right? And this is World War II Burma, but because it's Burma, it's so different from everything else. It was great. It was an
And the
experience.
cover is amazing.
Fantastic. I know, I just kept closing it and looking at the cover and being, like, studying because 'cause I'm a cover designer, so I'm, like, studying it and, like, going, "What are they why is that oh, it's part of the map. Okay, okay." Yeah, so cool. Love it.
And, did you read her one set in Hot Springs, Arkansas?
I have
What's it
saw
called?
that
Oh
one,
my
I love
gosh.
that cover too. Um
It's such a good book. What is that called? No,
um,
I'm just gonna oh, I don't even know what it's called. Okay, just look for
look her up.
Jenner Trump, and Trump, is that
Fantastic.
how you say your last name? Yeah,
Yes.
so it was so beautifully done, in Hot Springs It's like 45 minutes from me.
Awesome.
So I really loved her book, and I cannot wait to read this other one. But I've been reading a Christmas book right now, so she's gonna have to wait because I have to
Because
finish
you have
and
to read
find out
Christmas.
what is gonna happen to Mariah. I know what I want to happen to Mariah, but we'll
Every
see how you're gonna
There
get
are
us there.
surprises, but they are all happy. I promise.
Oh,
All
good.
happy.
Okay.
Everyone's happy at the end of the
Good.
book.
Alright, good. Oh, because right
Yeah,
now
my
there's some
editors were like,
miserable.
because I write, suspense with everything, and my editors were like, "We want it toned down. Think like Scrooge is your only villain. Like no one worse than Scrooge." I'm like, okay.
I love
So
that.
everyone needs to be like redeemed and happy at the end. I'm like,
Okay,
all right,
right
we
now
gotcha.
there's a very grumpy brother, and there's a very, um I don't even know how you meant the the Lord guy. Very unromantic is the word that's
He
coming
is
to mind
so
right now.
unromantic. Yeah.
Pragmatic. I don't know what he is, but he's so funny. All right, but it's I'm enjoying it so much. I cannot wait to finish. But now the question, where can people go to connect with you, to find you, and to find all your books?
You can find me online at rosannamwhite.com is my website. From there, you can sign up for my newsletter, which is my primary way of keeping in touch with everyone. And I'm on
Mhm.
all the big social media stuff. My handle is always Rosanna M. White. So
All right.
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest,
You
whatever.
make it
I'm
easy.
there. Yep.
All
All
right.
the same.
I love it. Well, thank you for being here today. It was so great, and I'm loving your book. So thank you for writing that.
Awesome. So great to talk to you. And Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.